Hello, welcome to Triggered Care. I'm Alex. Today, well, first of all, I kind of have a cold, so sorry if my nose gets nasally. Today, we are talking about psychosis. What it is, how you can get it from trauma, since that's my experience with it, and symptoms, what they're like, that sort of deal. So, psychosis. The first big thing I learned about psychosis is that your inner monologue can be controlled by the hallucinatory part of your brain, the same part of your brain that causes visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, that sort of thing. And when I learned that, that really blew my mind because I've always had a lot of monologues in my head and sometimes they fight with each other. And so just understanding that that's coming from the hallucinatory part of my brain was able, or made me more able to disconnect from them more and to not trust them more, which is very important for recovery because those voices can be damn convincing. When I was a kid, I thought of them more as like God coming into my head and the devil coming into my head. That sort of thing. I kind of had a religious spin to it because I was raised pretty religiously. I was accused of being possessed a number of times throughout my childhood. So that kind of fit into that narrative pretty well when the voices were really strong and all that shit. Just being like, oh, God's talking to me now, or the devil's getting into my head, It's pretty scary. But you just accept it when you're a kid, because you're like, okay. And I've always had those. For auditory, for the actual hearing outside of your body, I've had those since I was a kid too. Usually, like when it first started, it was really simple things like my name or mumbling and whispering and all that sort of thing. And now they happen pretty much regularly. It's not surprising when I have a hallucination of somebody walking around my house, of hearing the TV turned on when it's not turned on, of hearing voices in the other room. Usually before I go to sleep, there's a big old slew of them. It's not uncommon to happen during the day either, though. My brain's pretty messed up from that stuff. Visual hallucinations. So I mentioned in my employment one about the cats that I saw when I first started queuing in that I have hallucinations. I have very vivid visual hallucinations. So cats, people at work, people outside of work, dead friends is the worst one because it makes you so damn sad and it just really fucks up your day. Yeah, what else for visual? They usually pop up worse when like I'm going through a life change. Like if something changes dramatically and I have to adjust to it is usually when I see the most like visual hallucinations. When I moved into my house now, it was for about 2 weeks after the move, I was seeing random people in my house, in my yard. And usually they're just staring at me. Not very many of them try to talk to me at all. But it's scary, but it's also, it gets annoying after a while because you know that there's not really people in your house. And so you see them standing around. It's like, can you just fucking get out of here? Like, seriously, can you just can you just get out of my house and get out of my brain? I don't need to see just random ass people standing and staring at me like that. That's not helpful while I'm trying to get stuff unpacked and I'm trying to get stuff moved around and all that stuff. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. Or I've been out and about and I've hallucinated people that I know. And then that makes me look kind of silly because I'm like, oh, hey, whoever, how are you doing? And it turns out that either there's nobody there or the person who is there doesn't look anything like the person that I know. And then you're just left feeling super embarrassed. Like, oh, shit. I'm just not going to announce now when I see people. Because screw that noise. Next one that I gotta talk about with psychosis is delusions. Um, Delusions have caused me to punch myself, to cut myself, and it's the same stuff that makes me scratch at myself and try to break through the skin. Because you just feel like that will make it better, that will make it better, that will make it better. And part of that is just a delusion of I'm a piece of shit human being. I'm garbage, and I deserve this. And that's a delusion. That is not a realistic view of life. And it took me a while to figure out that that was a delusion and not low self-esteem or whatever it is. Because low self-esteem is different than being physically motivated to hurt yourself to make it better. That's when it gets to the psychosis side of things, of like feeling like you have a debt to pay and you can only pay with blood. That is a very delusional thinking. That's just what it is. It's freaking delusional. But not that I'm judging, because I get delusional like that too. But just recognizing that is a delusional thinking pattern that I fall into, almost like a brainwashing. Like we got brainwashed to believe that we're pieces of shit and worthless and all this stuff. And so when that mindset is turned on, it takes quite a bit to get out of it. It takes quite a bit to ground. It takes quite a bit to reach reality again. If you're in a really bad emotional flashback, or if you're just in a really bad delusional spot. Along with that sort of delusion, there's also the paranoid delusion that you are in danger. The hypervigilance, the hermiting, and all of that stuff is kind of into that delusional thinking of people are out to get me. I can't trust anybody. Everybody's out to get me. And if I go out, everybody's going to be staring at me. Everybody's going to be judging me. And that is a delusion, that you think that you're going out and everybody's staring at you. Nobody's staring at you. Nobody. Maybe if you got a fancy haircut, but even then, they're not staring at you judging. You know what they're doing? They're going, oh, look at that fancy haircut. That's what they're doing. Most normal people don't give 2 cents of thought to other people that they see out and about. You know, who thinks about other people that you see out and about is traumatized people. So, you know, just delusions are not fun, and I understand that you can't just turn them off. Believe me, I've been a hermit for years, so I can't claim to be an all-knowing guru of this stuff. I've watched it. I've watched my own paranoia and my own delusions really keep me from stuff. And it took me a long time to crawl out of that hole and to be like, you know what, no, first of all, I am worth something. I'm worth as much as anybody else on this planet. And along with that, I'm not being followed. People don't care about me in a good way. Like when I go out and about, nobody's going to be staring at me like, oh, what is that lady doing? Nobody cares. And for me to think that people care is kind of narcissistic on my end of, why would people be focused on me? There's no reason. There's so many people out there. Like, why would people just be like, oh, that lady, I gotta stare at her for a long time. Like, nobody's gonna freaking do that. And for the people who do that, guess what? They probably have trauma in their background. So we're just gonna stare at each other and be like, yep, we stare at people. So with all of this, with all the hallucinations and the delusions, it is scary. It's terrifying, especially at first. At first, it is very, very terrifying. I remember talking to hallucinations, but not really talking to them, like screaming at them to leave me alone and to, you know, just get the fuck out of here, sort of deal, and arguing with them. And then you just learn to kind of ignore them and just shake your head at them like, okay, whatever, dude. I mean, they can still jump scare me, like if they are like behind a corner or something, like, whoa, what was that? Okay. But it's a lot less intense than the early days, because the early days, you don't know what the fuck's going on. All you know is that you're seeing stuff that's not there and you have no idea why, and then that can perpetuate the self-hate. Like, oh, I'm so messed up and I'm the only one like this, and I promise you, you are not the only one like that. Trauma can cause psychosis. It just can. And it sucks when that happens, and it's a pretty extreme form of trauma that you go through to get the psychosis. I know. But you're not a weirdo. You're not you're you're not a bad person because you have psychosis at all. At all. And in fact, most of my friends on the support group who have psychosis, I love talking to them because they're so darn relatable. And they're intelligent. They're very intelligent people. And just being able to separate the person from the psychosis and being like, hey, you are strong as shit. All the stuff that you deal with on a daily basis, and you don't complain about it. You just keep fucking doing. And even when you do complain about it, you're only complaining to people who understand. Because people who don't understand can judge you harshly for that stuff because they don't understand it. So, for my fellow psychosis sufferers, you're strong as heck, dude. You're strong. And just don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself for how your brain responded. Your brain did the best it could with what it had. Alright? It's time that we team up with our brain and be like, alright, brain, what do you need to feel better? What do you need to feel safe? Let me work with you on it. So, I think that's going to do it for my little blurb on psychosis, since I just did one about employment, which also talked about psychosis. So, if you have a story, feel free to email me, to message me on the Discord, whatever you need to do to get your story to me. I'm working on a couple stories right now. Yeah. If you have a suggestion or a video topic that you want done on, you can even put it down in the comments. I'll read them. I'll read whatever you put out towards me, people. Alright, well, have a good one.